Each part of a lake are shown below. What is the total distance of the trail around the lake? Okay, so if we are looking for the total distance and they just gave me each part, how do I find the total distance? I would add all of these numbers up together. So I would have 1 1/4 plus 1 1/2 plus 3 plus 2 1/3 and plus 2 3/4. Now, when I add these, I have to always have what whenever I add fractions? I have to have a least common denominator. So let's find it. We've got 2, 3, and 4 as our denominators. So for 2, I would do 2 times 1, which gives me 2, 2 times 2, which is 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and we'll stop there. For 3, I have 3, 6, 9, and 12. And then for 4, I have 4, 8, and 12. And I'm going to stop there because right here, I see a 12 here, a 12 here, and a 12 here. So my least common denominator is 12. Now, I have to rewrite each of these to have a denominator of 12. So how do I get from 2 to 12? What do I multiply? I multiply times 6. So to this denominator right here, I'm going to multiply times 6. And then if I multiply the denominator times 6, I also have to multiply the numerator times 6. So I would rewrite that as 1 and then 6 over 12. Plus, and then we'll have to rewrite the other numbers. So we'll do 2 1/3 next. How do I get from 3 to 12? I multiply times 4. So to this 3 right here, I would multiply times 4, and I multiply the 1 times 4 as well. When I would rewrite that, I would rewrite my 2, and then I would have 1 times 4, and 1 times 4 gives me 4, and then I would have 3 times 4, and 3 times 4 gives me 12. For the next one, I would have 2 3/4, and how do I get from 4 to 12? I would multiply times 3. So I'm going to do 4 times 3, and if I do 4 times 3, I also have to do 3 times 3. So then I would have plus, keep the 2 in the front, 2, and then I would have 3 times 3, which gives me 9, and then 4 times 3, which gives me 12. And then finally, I have 1 1/4, and we just talked about how we get from 4 to 12 is by multiplying times 3. So with this 4 right here, I'd multiply times 3, and then if I multiply that times 3, I also multiply the 1 times 3. So that would give me 1 and then 3 over 12. I'm going to add all these up together now, so I start by adding my whole numbers. So I do 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1. Well, 1 plus 2 gives me 3. Plus 2 gives me 5, and then plus the final 1 gives me 6. So that's my whole number. Then after that, I add my numerators. So 6 plus 4 gives me 10. 10 plus 9 gives me 19. And then 19 plus 3 gives me 22 over 12. After that, I need to simplify this down. I have an improper fraction, so how do I change an improper fraction to a mixed number? I would divide. I would do 22 divided by 12. 22 goes on the inside because it's on top. 12 is too big to go into 2, but it does go into 22 one time. 1 times 12 is 12. Now I subtract, and that gives me 10. So this 1 right here is a whole number or numerator. That's a whole number, which makes 10 a numerator. I keep my 6, so I have 6 plus the whole number 1, the numerator of 10 over 12. 6 plus 1 gives me 7. Then I can simplify 2 and 12. What are both 10 and 12 divisible by? 2. So I do 10 divided by 2, which gives me 5, and then I would do 12 divided by 2, which gives me 6. So the final answer is 7 5/6. All right, for this one, we are starting with division. Remember, when we divide, we cannot have decimals on the outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and write this. Remember, the first number goes on the inside, so we have 56.2856, and then we have 437 or 4.37 on the outside. Now, I can't have decimals on the outside, so taking a look at 4.37, how many times do I need to move that decimal? Twice. So I'm going to move it 1, 2. So I'm going to move this decimal 1, 2. When I do that, that means I rewrite this as 437, and then I have 56, and then 28, and then the decimal goes after it because I just moved it, 56. So remember, we do Does McDonald's sell burgers? Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So the first thing we have to do is we have to look at 437. Does 437 go into 5? No, it's too big. Does it go into 56? No, it's too big. So we're going to put an X and an X above that. Does 437 go into 562? The answer to that would be yes. 437 is less than 562. So we're going to take a look at just 4, and how many times would 4 go into 5? 4 would go into 5 one time. Well, 1 times anything, so that was our division. Now we're going to multiply. 1 times anything is always just that number, so 1 times 437 gives me 437. So that was our multiplication. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to subtract. When we subtract, this 2 is going to turn into a 12, so this 6 turns into a 5. 12 minus 7 gives me 5. 5 minus 3 gives me 2. And then 5 minus 1 gives me 12. Sorry, 1 gives me 1. And then that was my subtraction, so now I'm going to bring down. I'm going to bring down my 8 right here. We're going to start back up at the top, so I'm going to do 437 into 1,258. We're going to use this 4. 4 doesn't go into 1, but it does go into 12, and 4 goes into 12 3 times. So we're going to start by estimating with a 3. We'll do 437 times 3. 7 times 3 gives me 21. So I write down a 1, and then I carry my 2. Then I have 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9, and then plus the 2 gives me 11, so I write down a 1, carry my 1. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 plus 1 is 13. Well, when I write that here, that's a little bit too big, so I have to take that back, and I'm going to have to drop this down 1 to a 2. And then we'll do 437 times 2. 7 times 2 is 14, so I write down a 4, carry my 1. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. 4 times 2 is 8, so that gives me 874. Subtract, 8 minus 4 gives me 4. This 5 right here will turn into a 15, and then 15 minus 7 gives me 8. Since we borrowed from that, that turned into a 1, and then 1 minus 8 we can't do, so that's going to turn into 11, and that'll turn into a 0. 11 minus 8 gives me 3. So we just divided, multiplied, and subtracted. The next step is to bring down. So it's 3,845. So we're going to use 4, and we're going to see how many times does 4 go into 3. It doesn't. How many times does 4 go into 38? And that would be 9 times. So we'll estimate with a 9 to start with. So we're going to do 437 times 9. 7 times 9 is 63, so I'll write down 3, carry my 6. 9 times 7 is 27. 27 plus 6 gives me 33, so I'll write down a 3, carry my 3. 9 times 4 is 36. 36 plus 3 is 39. Once again, a little bit too big. So this right here needs to be an 8 instead of a 9. So we'll do 437 times 8. 7 times 8 gives me 56, so I write down a 6, carry my 5. 8 times 3 gives me 24. 24 plus 5 gives me 29, so I write down a 9, carry my 2. 8 times 4 gives me 32. 32 plus 2 gives me 34. Phew. This is a tough one. All right, this 5 right here will turn into a 15 when we subtract. This 4 right here will turn into a 3. 15 minus 6 gives me 9. And then this 3 will turn into a 13. 13 minus 9 gives me 4. And then we borrowed from that 8, so it turns to a 7. 7 minus 4 gives me 3. We ran out of, no, we actually still have a 6 right here. Now, right here, we just had gotten 3,496. So I know that 437 goes into 3,496 8 times. And we know that it goes in perfectly, so we're all good. And then we can bring up this decimal to go right here, and that's going to give me 12.88. That was annoying. Okay, next one. We cannot have decimals on the outside. All right, so I'm going to take negative 31.668 and divide it by 13. 31.668 goes on the inside. 1.3 will go on the outside. I can't have decimals on the outside, so how many times do I need to move my decimal? I need to move it once that way. So how many times do I move it on the inside? Once that way. Now I have 13 going into 316.68. All right, for our 13. 13 is bigger than 3, so it doesn't go into that. It is smaller than 31, so it will go into 31. 13 times 1 gives me 13. 13 times 2 gives me 26. And then 13 times 3 gives me 39. So we go into it. 39 is too big, so we have to come back to the 26. So that would be the 2 right there. It goes into it twice. 2 times 13 gives me 26, and then we subtract. Oops. This would give me 5. Drop down the 6. All right. When we add another 13, that gives us 13 times 4. And that would be 52. 52 is super close to 56, so we're going to say it goes into it 4 times. 4 times 13 is 52. Subtract, and that gives me 4. Drop down this 6 right here. 52 is now too big, so we have to go back here to this 39, which means it goes into it 3 times. 3 times 13 is that 39 that's right there. This 6 turns into a 16, so this 4 turns into a 3, and then 16 minus 9 gives me 7. Drop down that 8 right there. We'll keep adding. 52 plus 13 gives me 65, so that's times 5. Plus another 13 gives me 78, so that's times 6. So the times 6 works perfectly because that's 78 and that's 78, so we know it goes in 6 times. And then 6 times 13 gives me 78, so that's perfect. We bring up that decimal to go right there. Now, this is 24.36, but we have to pay attention to our signs. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. All right, next one. We cannot have decimals on the outside. We're going to start by setting up our problem. We have 72 divided by 3.2. We can't have a decimal on the outside, so I need to move this over how many times? Once. That means I need to move the inside decimal over how many times? Once. Well, right now there's not an inside decimal, so I need to add 1 onto the end, and then I'll move it over 1 time. I have to add a 0 right there. So this is going to be 32 going into 720. All right, 32 is bigger than 7, so it doesn't go in there, but it does go into 72. We'll take a look at our 3. Our 3 goes into our 7 twice. So we're going to do 32 times 2. 2 times 2 gives me 4, and then 3 times 2 gives me 6. So this is going to be 64. Subtract, that 2 right there is going to turn into a 12, so that 7 turns into a 6, and 12 minus 4 gives me 8. Drop down my 0. 3 goes into 8 about 2 times. So we'll do another 2. We just found out that 32 times 2 gives us 64, so we'll write a 64 right here. Subtract, and then this 0 turns into a 10, so this 8 turns into a 7. 10 minus 4 gives me 6, and then 7 minus 6 gives me 1. I ran out of numbers. So now what I have to do at this point is I have to add a decimal and a 0. The decimal comes first. Drop down that 0. 32 goes into 160. 3 does not go into 1, but it will go into 16. 3 would go into 16 about 5 times, so we'll start by estimating with a 5. We have 32 times 5. 2 times 5 gives me 10, so I write down a 0, carry my 1. 5 times 3 gives me 15, plus 1 gives me 16. So there's my 160, subtracting that gives me 0. So we're good. This is 22.5. The next thing I have to pay attention to is a negative divided by a negative. A negative divided by a negative gives me a positive. Okay, perfect. This one says to find the value of the expression. Now, taking a look at this, are these same signs or different signs? These are same signs. They are same signs because this is a negative, and then this is a subtraction symbol, and remember, a subtraction symbol is a negative. So same signs, add or subtract. Same signs, add. We have to add our 2 numbers together. In order to do that, we have to find the least common denominator. We have 8 and we have 3. We have 8 times 1, which is 8, 8 times 2, which is 16, 8 times 3, which is 24. I'm going to stop right there with the 24 because I just multiplied times 3. We have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. My least common denominator is going to be the 24. So how did I get from 8 to 24? We multiplied times 3. So this 8 right here I'm going to multiply times 3. And to the 5 up at the top, I'm going to multiply times 3. This is going to be 24. And then I have negative 8. And then I have 15 times 3. 15 times 3, sorry, 5 times 3. 5 times 3 gives me 15. And then 8 times 3 gives me 24. Minus, how did we get from 3 to 24? We multiply times 8. So to this 3 right here, I'm going to multiply times 8. So to this 2, I have to multiply times 8. We keep our 4 just how it is. Then we have 2 times 8, which gives me 16, and then a denominator of 24. Remember, we are adding, so we're putting 8 and 4 together. 8 and 4 together gives me negative 12. After that, we have 15 and 16. 15 plus 16 gives me 31. So I have 31 over 24. I can't have 31 over 24, so how do I turn an improper fraction into a mixed number? We divide. So we do 31 divided by 24. 24 doesn't go into 3, but it does go into 31 one time. 1 times 24 is 24. Subtracting, that gives me 7. So my 1 is a whole number or a numerator. That is a whole number, which makes 7 a numerator. So now we have negative 12 plus, or we'll say minus because this is going to be a negative still, 1 and 7 over 24. So that's going to give me negative 13 and 7 over 24.